Today we're checking out the best lever-action guns of the West. Lever guns have been around forever, but Marlin went ahead and gave the 1895 a much-needed facelift with the Dark series. This rifle is what happens when a classic cowboy gun takes a trip to the modern era and comes back looking like it belongs in a John Wick movie. This thing fires the beastly 45-70 government round. This round has been putting holes in just about everything since the late 1800s, and it's still kicking. But here's the kicker. The Dark series makes this powerhouse of a round actually manageable. How? That muzzle brake. If you've ever fired a 45-70 without one, you probably felt it in your soul. But this setup eats a good chunk of that recoil, making it shockingly soft shooting for what it is. Pair that with a rubberized butt pad, and suddenly this big bore rifle isn't trying to knock you into next week. The Marlin 1895 Dark comes with ghost ring sights and a fiber optic front. In good lighting, that thing pops like a neon sign. And if iron sights ain't your thing, there's a Picatinny rail up top, ready for a scope or red dot. And here's where Marlin really nailed it. The Dark series is built for modern shooters. You got M-lock slots up front for mounting whatever your heart desires. Flashlight, sling, tactical cup holder, you do you. There's even quick detach, QD sling points. So strapping this thing up for a hunt or a long day in the woods is easy. The lever on this rifle is enlarged just enough. Not so big it feels cartoonish, but not so small you're bashing your knuckles every time you rack around. It's smooth, fast, and just feels good to run. Now, weight-wise, this thing's got a bit of heft, which actually helps soak up recoil even more. And for a big bore rifle, that's a huge win. It's controllable, accurate, and doesn't feel like you're wrestling with a cannon. Number 4. Henry. One thing Henry does better than most? The action. This rifle cycles smoother than my F-150 on a freshly paved highway. That's what makes it perfect for beginners. You're not fighting the lever every time you cycle around. It's clean, effortless, and just satisfying to shoot. And because it's a .22, you don't have to worry about your shoulder taking a beating. Soft recoil, easy handling, and a simple design make this a great gun for newbies, kids, or anyone who just wants a stress-free day at the range. Here's a major win. .22 LR ammo is dirt cheap. You can buy a whole box of rounds for what you'd pay for a few shots of something bigger. That means more practice, more plinking, and more fun, without feeling like your wallet's taking a hit every time you pull the trigger. If you're just getting into shooting, you don't want to be shelling out cash every time you hit the range. This rifle lets you shoot all day without regret. Now, some folks will point out that the receiver on these rifles isn't steel, it's a zinc alloy, and yeah, maybe that doesn't sound as rugged as some of the higher-end lever guns. But let's be real, it's a .22. You're not putting heavy-duty stress on this thing. You could run thousands of rounds through it and still not have to worry about wear and tear. It's got a durable finish, a high-quality barrel, and Henry's known for standing behind their products. You're not getting a throwaway gun here. You're getting a rifle that's gonna last. If you're teaching someone how to shoot, or just want an easy-to-handle gun for plinking, the Henry .22 LR is a no-brainer. It's lightweight for the most part, easy to aim, and doesn't kick like a mule. If you've got young shooters, this rifle is a natural step up from a BB gun. Same mechanics, just a little more firepower. It's also a great option if you're trying to convince your wife or girlfriend to hit the range with you. Low recoil, easy handling, and let's be honest, just plain fun to shoot. Number 3. The Winchester 1873. It's the lever gun that won the West. But beyond the cowboy nostalgia, this rifle is hands down one of the smoothest cycling lever actions you can get, especially at this price point. Ever tried working the lever on some budget lever guns? Feels like wrestling a rusty gate. But the 73? It's got a silky, short throw, so smooth you could cycle it with your pinky. That's why cowboy action shooters love this thing. It just glides. If you're new to lever guns and don't want to fight with your rifle every time you rack around, this is the way to go. Now let's talk recoil. If you're picking a rifle as a beginner, the last thing you want to feel like is like you just got sucker punched every time you pull the trigger. That's why the 357-38 special version of this gun is such a solid choice. recoil is super soft. And because this rifle's got a nice bit of weight to it, it eats up even more of that kick. You could shoot this all day without turning your shoulder into mashed potatoes. You're not just getting a smooth shooter with light recoil, you're also getting some great sights right out of the box. The buckhorn rear sight and brass bead front make target acquisition quick and easy. Even if you've never shot a lever action before, this setup makes it real intuitive to line up your shots. And when you're just starting out, that's a huge plus. And let's talk capacity. 14 rounds. 14. That's a whole lot of pew before you gotta stop and reload. If you were shooting something like a 45-70, you'd be lucky to get half that. That's one of the big reasons a lot of people go for 38-357 and lever guns. You get way more rounds in the tube, which means more time shooting and less time fumbling with reloads. Now, the curved butt plate might be a hit or a miss for some people. If you got a bigger frame, it might dig in a little, but for smaller shooters, it fits right into the shoulder and nice and snug. So if you're not built like a linebacker, you'll probably find it comfortable. The lever loop is on the smaller side compared to modern tactical lever guns. But that's just how they were made back in the day. And honestly, for beginners, that smaller loop means faster, smoother cycling. So it's actually a plus. Number 2. Smith Wesson Model 1854. At first glance, the Model 1854 looks like a rifle that's been through a midlife crisis, and in the best way possible. It's chambered in .44 Magnum, which gives it plenty of punch. Where it really stands out is how lightweight it feels compared to your traditional steel and wood lever guns. That's a win for folks who don't want to feel like they're carrying a cinder block through the woods. Smith & Wesson threw in some modern touches to make this rifle feel like a solid mix of old school and tactical. You get a threaded barrel for running a suppressor, a Picatinny rail for optics, and M-lock slots for mounting accessories. So while it's got that Wild West charm, it's also ready for the 21st century. The front brass bead sight is great for quick target acquisition, but the ghost ring rear sight might take some getting used to. It's a little wide, so if you're all about precision shooting, you might want to slap a scope or a red dot on that pick rail. Now, recoil-wise, this thing is shockingly smooth for a .44 Magnum. The flat trigger bow helps keep your shots crisp, and that butt pad actually does a great job of soaking up the kick. You're not going to feel like you just took a punch from a heavyweight champ after every shot. This rifle is fast to cycle and easy to run. The medium power lever loop is a nice touch. It's big enough for gloved hands, but not so oversized that it feels clunky. However, you do need to be mindful of your knuckles because if you're not careful, you might smack them a time or two. Ask me how I know. The trigger has a little slack before the break, which isn't uncommon for lever guns, but it might take some getting used to. Compared to other rifles in its class, it's better than most, but not quite perfect. For a first-time lever gun shooter, this rifle is actually really approachable. The side loading gate is smooth and won't wreck your thumb, and the removable magazine tube makes unloading a breeze. That's a feature that's usually hit or miss on lever guns, but Smith & Wesson got it right. At around $1,270, you're getting modern features, lightweight handling, and smooth cycling. It's actually a solid deal. Other lever guns with these kinds of upgrades tend to run higher, so this one sits in that sweet spot where you're getting your money's worth without emptying your wallet. Number 1. Henry Long Ranger Express. We're talking about a lever gun that decided it didn't want to be a lever gun. The Henry Long Ranger. Now, Henry. They make some of the finest lever-action rifles out there. Smooth, reliable, and dripping with that old-school Americana charm. But the Long Ranger? This thing is like that one cousin who shows up to the family cookout with an electric smoker instead of a charcoal grill. Technically it works, but it just feels wrong. So what makes this rifle different? Well, unlike your grandpappy's lever gun, this bad boy ditches the classic tube-fed design for a detachable box magazine. That means you can run pointy bullets like .308, .243, and 5.56, stuff that traditional lever guns can't handle without causing a chain reaction that turns your rifle into a pipe bomb. On paper, that's a win, especially for hunters who want a flat shooting caliber. And I gotta say, the accuracy, pretty darn impressive for a lever gun. I was running 80 grain Hornady CX rounds in 243 and getting 3/4 MOA grooves off a bench rest. That's bolt action territory, folks. The trigger's clean too. Crisp, about 3.5 to 4 pounds. If lever guns had a Best in Class award for triggers, this one would be taking home the trophy. Now before you start selling off your old Winchesters, let's talk about the trade-offs. First off, the whole appeal of a lever gun is that fast, smooth cycling, right? Well, the Long Ranger has a different bolt system. It locks up solid, which is great for accuracy, but it also makes it feel a little stiffer than your traditional lever action. Not a deal breaker, just something to note. Then there's the look and feel. If you came here expecting classic Western charm, you're in for a shock. This rifle is all business. No brass receiver, no checkered walnut stock, just a sleek, modern hunting rifle that happens to have a lever. It's slim, it's lightweight, and it's got a laminated stock that's tougher than an old boot. That's great for the backwoods, but if you're after cowboy aesthetics, this ain't your huckleberry.